Hi, BookTube. It's Gina. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. How are you? Tell me in the comments how your week is going. I like to hear how everyone is. I thought today I would do a wrap up and a reckoning for February. Two things I want to talk about. One, I want to share what I read. Most of it I already have talked about at some point, but not everything. And then also, I want to update you on my tracking. So, one of the things I'm doing this year is tracking my book purchases. Not in an effort to reduce my spending or decrease the number of books that I bring in at this point, just track. I'm just curious what I buy, how much I spend, and where my money is going. So I'm trying to pay attention to it just to see what I'm doing. Because if you asked me last year, how many books did you buy and how much money did you spend? I would not have a clue. I would not have any idea. So I've got some notes here in my little handy dandy notebook. I love these little notebooks. I think I got this one in a 3-pack at Half Price Books for cheap, and they're really nice for just kind of keeping track of notes and things. So let's start first with what I read in February. I read 6 books, and they were actually a really fun combination of classics and one new release. So let's go through them. The first thing I read was a book called Kate Hardy by D.E. Stevenson. And D.E. Stevenson is one of my mid-century ladies that I love so much. This book was maybe a 3-star for me. And actually, I think everything I read this month, I would say was a 3-star. I enjoyed everything. Nothing stood out as spectacular and nothing was terrible. So everything was sort of right in the middle, which I'm actually fine with. I don't have an expectation that I'm on the hunt for 5-star reads. A 3-star read to me is pretty good. Maybe these would be 4-star reads to some people because I really enjoyed them. I read through them. I just didn't love them. So maybe, I don't know, 3 to 4-star if I'm tracking. I generally don't track. If you follow me on Goodreads, you'll probably see what I tend to do when I'm rating is 5 stars are I know exactly, because to me 5 stars are what I have fallen in love with. And so if you see a 5-star from me, that means I loved it. And then if I hated something, it was a 2-star, because if it's a 1-star, generally I just have DNF'd it. I don't have any problem DNFing. So 2 stars I rate because those are things I despised. 5 stars are things I loved, and pretty much everything else sort of falls in that I enjoyed it, I read it, but I didn't love it or hate it. So I have a lot of those, and I'm okay with that. I got a little off topic. Sorry. So, what was I saying? Oh, Kate Hardy by D.E. Stevenson. So it was a fine read, a little bit of a weird subplot going on about witches in the village. It was a pretty typical D.E. Stevenson romance. Next I read, and this one I actually do have a copy of, The Binding by Bridget Collins. This was, I would say, my new release for February, even though it's a couple years old at this point. I had bought this new at Barnes & Noble last month, and I was excited to get to it. Enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. It's a fantasy. And the first section is broken into 3 sections. The first section started to sort of explore the magic and the world, which I enjoyed. And then the second and third sections I felt like didn't take up the promise of going deeper into the magic or the world building, and it left me a little bit unsatisfied. But I raced through it. It's a very compulsive, fun read, and really enjoyed, even though I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. So that was sort of my new release. I also read Jane and Prudence by Barbara Pym, another one of my favorite ladies. Another 3-star read. I feel like this was good. I really liked it. What I like most about Barbara Pym is she's a little on the bleak side, but also cozy at the same time. And this one had a fairly bleak ending, it seemed like to me, which I kind of like. I don't necessarily need super happy endings. This one is probably higher than a 3-star read. I would say this one was probably in the 4 to 4.5 star. I definitely really loved this one. Next, I read The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope, and I don't have a paper copy of that one. I read it on my Kindle. And this one I also really enjoyed. However, this book is very much focused on people in the financial world playing some trickery on everyone else, some young people who get caught up in that, and it caused me a lot of anxiety, and it's something that's difficult for me to read. So I had a little bit of trouble really enjoying it, simply for personal reasons, because I could see why it was great. It's really well written, and I love the way Anthony Trollope has all of these wonderful side characters, and everything really comes together well in the end. But for me, this one was a little overly angsty. Next, I read Greenbanks by Dorothy Whipple. This was a buddy read with a friend, and this is also right in the mid-range, I would say, of 3 to 3.5, 3 stars. Very loose ending. Dorothy Whipple is possibly not one of my favorites. The last book of hers that I read, I also didn't love, so I'm not sure how many more of her books I'm going to read. I like her style. She seems to struggle with endings a little bit. Like this one just sort of dropped off and left everything open, which again, I tend to not really mind too much. But some of the things that led up to it just felt a little overly contrived, and trying to fill in some plot with contrivances to bring things together at the end in a way that I just wasn't feeling it. So it was all right. Didn't love it. That would probably be on the lower end of my ratings for last month. I also read The Black Prince by Iris Murdoch. I've talked about this one before. This poor edition, I think, is probably just going to have to go into the garbage. It's pretty ratty at this point. This one was, I would say, also a pretty solid 3-star. Didn't love it, but enjoyed it well enough. Iris Murdoch has got such a distinctive style, and it's very literary, very I don't know, it could be considered a little snobby, it seems like sometimes, which puts me off a little bit on this one. But still, I'm glad I read it. I'm trying to reread some of her books because it's been many, many years since I've read them, and I loved her. I have a huge collection that I'm trying to revisit this year. So that was my reading. I read 3 of my mid-century ladies. I read 1 recent classic, which is sort of what I'm calling this, maybe modern classic. I don't know how you classify these things written in the 70s, 80s. And 1 classic with the Anthony Trollope, and 1 new-ish release with the binding. That I feel like that's actually kind of a fun combination for me. I like to read a mixture, and this was I think this was a fun month for how my reading kind of fell out. I enjoyed a new release, a contemporary classic, and then a classic. So it was a fun reading month. As far as what I bought, I I bought 29 books in March. Only one of them was new. I bought a new cookbook, the Forest Feast, the Mediterranean Forest Feast edition, which I love. I love. I showed it in a prior video. I don't have it handy to show you again. But that one I bought with credit because I had sold some books back to the used bookstore, and then I used my credit to get that one. So I actually didn't spend any money on it, but I did buy it with credit. And then I bought 28 used books, and a lot of those, I don't know, 18, 19 of them, I forgot to write that down, were from a recent haul that I did from the Tacoma used book center, which is one of my favorites. And they tend to have a lot of the sort of the ladies that I love. I reorganized them and put some of the paperbacks that I bought here. This is like Georgette Hare, Mary Stewart, Daphne du Maurier are in this pile. And this bookstore seems to have a lot of this style of book. And I love collecting these. I love collecting these old vintage paperbacks. And I love collecting the hardbacks, the vintage hardbacks in the D.E. Stevenson, Barbara Pym, Mary Stewart category. So I don't mind spending some money on those books. I enjoy the shopping experience. I enjoy puttering through the bookstore. And so I'm not upset with how much money I spent and how many books I bought last month. I can't honestly say that I'm ever upset with how much money I spend on books or how many books I buy, because I'm still in a spot in my library, my home library, where I have what I consider some placeholders. So I have some books here on my shelves, not these. This is my shelf of pretty much of keepers or collections. But my other 4 big shelves that I have some books that I can pull out. I can weed some out to put in some new purchases. So I'm constantly sending stuff out and bringing stuff in, and I'm cool. I'm okay with that. It's fun. I love the shopping experience. I love, like I said, puttering through the used bookstores, maybe stopping for coffee or going to lunch or something like that. So book shopping for me is definitely another hobby in addition to reading and collecting. So that was my February. I will check in with you on Friday as to what I'm currently reading, because I'm reading some books for March Mystery Madness and middle grade March and having a blast with that. So I didn't do a Friday reads last Friday, so I'll update you on Friday with what I'm currently reading. So I will talk to you then. Bye, BookTube.